What would your advice be for parents who may be in this situation? Where should they go? What should they do? What kind of bike should they look for?
Yeah, well, on a local level, it's easy for me to say in a very biased manner, like we have a situation where you could come in, you could get a kid's bike if and when they're available, because we don't get them that often. But there's not a lot of used bike shops out there. So if you are the parent and you're trying to be budget conscious, you're trying to be aware that they're gonna outgrow it quickly, the best middle ground, and some people might yell at me for this, but I'm thinking about this strictly in terms of if you are budget conscious. Kids bikes in the used bike world. So there is a unique set of problems here, and this might not be something that's very well known by those who sell new bikes. In the point and click model, whether it's an adult bike or a kid's bike, you're gonna be up to what is the stock of the manufacturer. To my knowledge, there are not issues specifically with kids bikes in getting them in versus adult size bikes. But I will say that for our model, we have found a lot of unique issues when it comes to sourcing and having quality kids bikes available. So I'll get into a couple of those now. The biggest issue is that there's a constant shortage of them. This has been the case since day one in our business, and that shortage is directly created by the fact that we stand by certain brands only. If we wanted to take in any child's bike with two wheels, we could keep a consistent stock in our store. And I have seen firsthand what the benefits are to having them in. Yes, we might make less on a kid's bike sale. However, what happens when little Johnny, who's 6 years old, is getting a little bit too fast for the parents to keep up on foot? They come in and they buy two hybrids. We've seen this time and time again, which is why we have motivation to keep kids bikes stocked in our store. However, we also have achieved such a high level of trust and respect from the local community by sticking to our guns and only sourcing and selling high quality bikes that would have originated in a bike shop. So we stick to these same quality standards when it comes to children's bikes. But here's a couple of problems that come into play with that. The first is, understandably so, parents do not want to invest heavily in a bicycle that little Johnny is going to grow out of in 6 to 8 months. I would be right there with them. New prices on kids' bikes are a little bit absurd, just like how they are with adult bikes. Most American families are not looking to fork over $300 to $500 for a bicycle that is going to last 6 months, and then they're gonna have to rinse and repeat. You might see this a little bit more often in families with multiple children, where they can kind of get the hand-me-down effect. But even so, the other factor to consider with this is that kids are hard on bikes, and that's yet another reason to maybe not invest too heavily. We see a lot of that in our service department, where kids are gonna be kids and they're gonna have as much fun as they want. They're not necessarily connected emotionally with the idea of taking care of a bicycle as if it's their own. It's more so something that just appears under the Christmas tree one year, and after they break it, another one's going to magically appear. I know I was one of those kids. So for us, this presents a range of unique problems. There's not a lot of these quality bicycles showing up for children in secondhand marketplaces. When they are, the parents typically, and again, rightfully so, they would like to get at least a decent portion of their money back on this bike that, after all, they bought it 6 months ago for $350. They don't want to hear that the trade-in value on this bike is $40 or less. However, when they walk in our doors, that's about what they're gonna get. And it's not us trying to lowball, it's us looking at the reality of the expectation of the used purchase price on a kid's bicycle is not gonna be any more than $80 or $100. For us to sell it at that price point and buy it for $40 is already representing a significantly shrunk profit from what we would normally see from a traditional adult bike sale. Not to mention the heightened labor challenges that come with bikes that tend to be a little bit more beaten down. Imagine buying a bike for $40, having to put tires, tubes, and replace the seat because there's a tear in it from when it was thrown down that one time. And now you're trying to turn it over for $80. Yes, there's still that notion of you're bringing more parents in that could potentially be buyers for hybrid bikes, but I'm only willing to take that loss-leading attitude so far. So here's the rock and the hard place that we're in between. I can't offer a super high premium value for this bike that was worth $350 and was not purchased terribly long ago. On the other hand, I'm not willing to compromise and bring in bikes from department stores that we know firsthand are not going to last that first summer of riding. So with this, we're caught in this situation, and we have been for many years, where we get a few kids' bikes that trickle in. As soon as they're in, they sell like that. And for the most part, when somebody walks in our doors, they will see 1 or 2 or 0 kids' bikes available. On the adults' bike side, we have very much the opposite problem. We have many multiple wells that we can draw from, and even if one is going dry, we consistently are able to source from all the other ones. But kids' bikes in the used reseller space, they do pose a unique challenge if you are sticking to your guns on providing quality components and brand names.
It's tough on parents too, because they're in the situation where they might see a department store has something for really inexpensive, and so they're incentivized. It makes sense, it's right there, and they don't really know, nor should they know, that componentry that's used in those bikes is lower quality. So especially if their kid happens to be harder on that bike, or even not, just the bike itself, sometimes they get it, and we have cases where they'll come in and it's not working, the shifting, what happened? And they're like, we barely even rode it once, right? Now, all of a sudden, the work that needs to be put into those bikes is more than that bike was worth in the first place. What do?
It's the same cultural battle that you fight with the adult bikes. The mentality that a bike is a bike is a bike. And so with kids' bikes, I mean, even for us, here's another thing that may be coming into play. We sell used bikes. What's the stigma against used? Do I want to buy something used for my kid? Is this safe? If that's even a question in their mind, they're going to go buy new. But the ironic thing is new often is Walmart or Target, which the safety is definitely a coin flip. I'm not going to go out and say blanket statement, department store bikes are unsafe. They can be assembled safely. One thing that surprises me, and maybe this comes down to just skills acquisition and getting the right people in place, but in my mind, I would think that a larger department store could get a skilled mechanic in there. Doesn't mean that the quality of their product is necessarily better, but at least having it built by a professional up front. And even if that increases the price of their product 5% or so, I would think that they would really make this better of both worlds. Of course, it doesn't solve the longevity issue. And then there's the whole host of problems of getting a skilled mechanic in every Walmart and Target across the country. The volume of bikes that they're selling, I'm probably naive in saying one mechanic, you're probably looking at a team. And then you're talking about Walmart just encroaching into the bike shop space entirely, and they probably have bigger fish to fry.
I have one more question too.
Sure.
What would your advice be for parents who may be in this situation? Where should they go? What should they do? What kind of bike should they look for if they find themselves in a situation like this?
Yeah, well, on a local level, it's easy for me to say in a very biased manner, like we have a situation where you could come in, you could get a kid's bike if and when they're available, because we don't get them that often. But, you pick something up for $100, 6 months later, they outgrow it, and now you can trade up to the next size. You trade that bike back in, you might only get $20 or $40 back on it, but then you're using that right into the next bike that, again, we're selling for significantly less than the MSRP, and we're sticking to the quality brand. However, I'm answering that question under the context that you live within reasonable distance of this shop. There's not a lot of used bike shops out there. So if you are the parent and you're trying to be budget conscious, you're trying to be aware that they're going to outgrow it quickly, the best middle ground, and some people might yell at me for this, but I'm thinking about this strictly in terms of if you are budget conscious, go get the department store bike and do so under the knowledge that maybe your kid will outgrow it before they break it. That might be the same for if they had a Trek or Giant or Specialized, because kids really are hard on their bikes. But just take this one extra step. Take the bicycle from, I don't know if I should be saying department store. Just take this one extra step. Take that bike from the department store straight to a mechanic at a shop and at least ask for a safety inspection. If the shop is nice, they will do that for you without maybe going all the way 9 yards to a full-blown tune-up. However, it might need a full-blown tune-up because the sad reality is these bikes are slapped together. Often a lot of the safety concerns can be appropriately addressed just by having an experienced mechanic take 20 minutes to look it over, to double check the work of whomever it may have been in the back of the department store that put this together with very limited experience.
In the back of their minds, I guess they should keep in mind, because this is a department store bike, it's part of, this deal, this devil's deal. The longevity, it might not be there.
Yeah, and as much as people will attack me in the audience for saying something like that, I'm saying this coming from a family where we were a little bit more budget conscious. And I can't just sit here and be like, oh, well, just understand that it's a higher quality thing to go to a Trek store or a Specialized store and just be willing to fork over the $350 because it's what's safe for your kid. I could drill down on the safety buzzword and try and get you to go buy the thing, but it's just ignoring the economics are a reality for a lot of people. I will say this. If you have a lot of children, it could be economical to go get the $350 nicer bike that you know your kid's gonna outgrow, and you know that it was professionally serviced, and it may come with a warranty as well, and then you get to pass it down to the next kid, and even though that one child maybe got 6 months out of it, you're at least getting a decent lifeline. You have a quality product that, put it this way, yes, the sticker price is lower at the department store today, but if it breaks 6 months from now and you want your kid to keep riding, what are you gonna do? You're gonna go out and replace the bike. You only need to buy it 2 or 3 times before it's equal to if you just went to the Trek store in the first place.
What if parents, they go on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, they find a Trek Giant Specialized, they purchase it for, if they can get it for really inexpensive on Craigslist, then they bring that to a mechanic. Is that a viable option for them
That's
as well?
definitely a viable option.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I would say same with if you're, I don't mind it when our customers do that for their adult bikes. They find a Trek for $50 on Craigslist. Yes, you're taking the quote unquote risk. I wasn't there to assess if there are major problems with it. I have seen the case where somebody bought a carbon fiber XYZ. They got it for very inexpensively. They bring it in thinking they're just gonna get a tune-up, and then I find hairline cracks in the frame, and now we're looking at a whole different issue. However, your question did bring something up in my mind that I'm surprised I have not talked about yet, and it would be probably criminal to not mention it since we're talking about kids' bikes and safety and what may be the best option for families out there. I don't know if any of you out there have serviced a Guardian bike yet, the Shark Tank company that Mark Cuban bought up. They are onto something. I'm not gonna say that they are a super budget-friendly and inexpensive fix, but the stuff that comes behind their product is surprising. You can get a bike that's gonna be very well fitted and easy to learn and legitimately safer than most of the kids' bikes out there. I can get into all kind of technicals about their, I don't know if it's called the Sure Stop system. Maybe we'll do another video where we talk specifically about that. But for $200 to $350 price point, if my understanding is correct, you can get a bike from them not only that's warranted for a year, but they will buy back or even pay for the service on it, I think within that first year, if you have any issues with it, which to me is just bold. I've had some customers come in here that say, hey, this was within the year. Can you provide me an invoice because I'm sending this to Guardian Bikes. They're covering it for me. And I'm looking at this. I get onto Google afterwards. What did they spend on this bike? And it's like $340, $350. It's like Guardian just assumed the $140 bill for replacing the chain and getting everything tuned up because the work was needed to be done within the first year after their purchase. Now, to me, that seems like a home run of an idea. I'm not sure exactly how the economics work. Maybe they are betting on a low enough instance of these types of occurrences happening that it's a net benefit for them, and that also that kind of deal is an enticement for sales. I'd be really curious to look under the hood of Guardian bikes, but I have had the privilege of getting my hands on some of the Guardian bikes, and I would definitely stand behind that product. So this turned into a video that was just very broadly about kids bikes in general, used or new. There's definitely unique issues with them on the used side. There may not be too many out there who can relate. I know from past experience working in new shops that this is where, by and large, people experience the most sticker shock. Most people are not walking in expecting the price points that exist for a bike that they know intuitively. You don't have to be a bike mechanic to know that your little kid is going to outgrow a bike of a certain size within a surprisingly short span of time. So it's an issue whether you're dealing with used bikes or new. I would say, as one last kind of idea that pops into my head and something that I have seen with new bike shops, is just having a buyback program. Usually it's 25 to 40% of what the sale price is within a certain allotment of time. That's something that can give a little bit more ease in the parent's mind of, oh, I'm spending all of this on this bike, but hey, I can bring it back. I can get some of my cash back or store credit. So it's really not as expensive as it may look. It's also an incentive to get somebody back into your store, and then it may be a way for you to get that bike back at a lower price. And especially in the used bike environment, this can kind of cause some recycling where when the kid outgrows it, they bring it back. I will say, I'm not gonna paint that all rosy. We do a similar thing. More often than not, we do find that the damage that was done to the bike unfortunately makes it not a viable trade-in option. But I think it's a nice thing to offer, and it can help in the moment of the sale where they just need a little bit of easement in the reality of spending $350 on a kid's bike. Anyways, let me know your thoughts. We really dove deeper into this topic than I thought we would, but it is a fascinating topic. If you have a used bike shop out there and you don't have issues sourcing quality kids bikes, definitely let us know in the comments.
Yeah, cool. That was a banger.
Yeah, that was a good one.